exactly how much better are Green Berets than the SEALs? At what? I think we have to, the first, just like me at 21 years old, I didn't understand the difference.
Right, guys, so today we're going to be getting into a video by Jocko Willink. It's titled Navy SEALs versus Green Berets. The question is, who's better? If at all there is even an answer to that. Now, I'm going to compare it to something that used to get compared an awful lot when I was serving in the Royal Marines Commandos. Who's better, the Parachute Regiment or the Marines? Now, in Great Britain, that's quite a big deal, okay? You either, if you want to join an elite military unit, a regular elite military unit from Civvy Street to military, the top end of that ladder on direct entry is the Parachute Regiment or the Royal Marines. It's as simple as that. You'll have people argue left and right, but it's the Paras or the Marines in terms of civilian going in right at the top end in terms of the quality and the hard, arduous nature of training. Question gets thrown about who's the hardest, who's the toughest, who's this, who's that. But I always used to answer it like this. Both very, very good. On the left-hand side, you've got the Parachute Regiment, they are airborne forces, and on the right-hand side, you've got the Royal Marines, who are amphibious infanteers, okay? Amphibious, airborne. Are we capable of doing what they do in terms of the airborne stuff? Of course we are. We get a lot of Royal Marines go through training and getting their wings. Are the Parachute Regiment capable of doing what we do? Of course they are, all right? They might not do as much of it in terms of the landing craft stuff, in terms of the... the maritime things, but I bet you bottom dollar if you put a Parachute Regiment guy in with our section and we had to go do a few things with regards the amphibious stuff, they'd fit right in, okay? It's that professional level that they've reached. So it's going to be interesting to see what Jocko Willink and Tim Kennedy talk about with regard to Navy SEALs, Green Berets. Let's get into it.
So every special mission unit has a pretty well-defined mission, and all of them are different. I would never want to get in a gunfight with a bunch of Navy SEALs on a boat anywhere near the water. I mean, within like miles of water. It's just a catastrophe. I also don't think that there's anyone on the planet besides Special Forces that can do a force multiplier like we can. You can take 12 of us, you can drop us in Venezuela, leave us there for 6 months, and we probably overthrew the government and placed the new president, in place and running the economics, the power plants, the commerce, transportation, and like each of us, the 12 of us, have like married at least 4 or 5 Venezuelans, be like,
right. So he's talking a little bit about the differences. Obviously, he's highlighted the fact that similar to what I've just mentioned, Navy SEALs, amphibious, that's their bag. Then you've got Special Forces, the Green Berets doing what they do. Now, he's joking around, but he means a lot of what he says. There's quite a bit of substance behind what he says. And from my understanding, knowing a couple of guys who are in different various outfits within the Special Forces world, both in America and the UK, I can honestly testify on their behalf that there's a lot of intellectual guys, very, very intellectual. You just have to look at some of the reserve service men and women and the backgrounds and what they come from. Some of them are coming from, doctors and pharmacy backgrounds, really, really bright individuals, then going into frontline combat operations and doing really well at it. So I would say the key differences with Navy SEALs and Green Berets, although this isn't for all of the individuals in the groups, but I can definitely say all individuals within the Green Berets are going to have a pretty high IQ. You're not going to be one of those guys who isn't really smart, who slipped through the net into the Green Berets. You're going to have something about you. You're going to have an IQ that allows you to be not only fit and strong, but very smart to go with it. And that is a very dangerous element to add to any special forces group. I've heard it said that, you know, the difference between regular outfits and special forces is, you know, you're not just that fit rugby player guy, but you can also probably, you know, go and pass, you know, the bar to be a lawyer. All right, you're a smart guy, really, really smart. Okay, and that's what they want on the team. They want smart, intellectual people who's also capable of killing you. All right, it's a really fascinating subject. This, I really love it.
Like that's people don't understand like why we have to speak other languages, why we have to go through economic and you know, geopolitical classes. It's because we're different. Like the missions are different. What we're supposed to do is different. And because of a different mission, we end up with different products. And those products are groups of dudes that are the baddest dudes on the planet for what they have to do.
Yeah. And I mean, I left that question in there for a couple of reasons. Number one was because I thought it was kind of funny. You know, obviously whoever wrote that had a sense of humor. And, you know, the real question, you know, was just, to me, was just about really defining. And I'd say the exact same thing that you'd say. I would add this to it. You know, yes, you know, you look at Rangers, you look at SEALs, you look at Green Beret, you look at MARSOC, and everyone's got their own little specialty of what they're really good at. And as a whole, they'll be better at that than the other group. And then within the SEALs, within the Rangers, within SF, you got different levels of guys that are in there.
Yeah.
I know you probably worked with some SEALs that you thought, what are these guys? And you probably work with some guys that you said, damn, I'd love to work with those guys. And the same thing with me. I worked with some SF guys that I thought to myself, man, these guys are unbelievable. I would do anything for these guys. And sometimes you look at them, you go, I wonder how these guys made it through.
Yeah. You get to team.
That's something that in the Marines, I actually thought that, you know, that level of excellence it's high and it's throughout every individual, but you do on occasion see someone who, I've mentioned this before, slips through the net almost, but we've got to understand there's an element of attainment that you have to reach to be able to get into these fine groups within the military. You've got a minimum attainment level, all right, a minimum kind of level you've got to get to make the grade, and you're making the grade, okay? What I found is, especially in commando training, is a lot of the guys actually are above and beyond that attainment level, and they do perform very, very well, okay? Although the standards is really high, we've got guys who are smashing above and beyond those standards. Quite a lot of them did, all right? And especially in my troop, I found anyway, a lot of us were quite above par in many, many ways. But that guy who seems as if he slipped through the net has still met all of the requirements, and he's still going to be a really, really good soldier or Marine. It's just that the minimum attainment level is normally surpassed by most of the guys who were there in the first place. Believe it or not, although it's really, really hard. Probably it's the same type of thing with special forces, all right? It's really tough to get in, but the guys that do get through have obviously, you know, they've ticked all of the boxes, but those guys that have slipped through the net are seen, well, how are you getting here? How have you even got through this course? Well, they've probably met the grades, okay? It's just that your peer group have probably smashed through those grades. I know that's how it was with the guys who I served with.
Teams. I get to teams. I'd be like, did you really pass selection, dude?
Yeah. Like, that's one thing that's really hard for the American public to understand. Is that there is, and I've explained this a bunch of times on the podcast, that there's a bell curve just like any other organization. There's the top guys that are, you know, totally badass.
Guys that just made it through.
And then there's a bunch of guys in the middle that are totally solid guys that get it done all the time. And then there's a bunch of guys that just, they barely got through. And
exactly what I was saying there.
They skate, and that's, you know, that's part of the way it is. Yeah. But one thing I can tell you for sure is the special operations community, I don't limit my respect for the special operations community alone. For me, working with the Army, the conventional Army guys, the Marine Corps.
Oh, Marines. They're always good.
Oh, they're always good. They're consistently.
What, you're a rifle company?
Yeah.
Dude, awesome.
Yeah.
Can I please work with you? Because you just wanted, they're like a bunch of pit bulls that have been like locked up in a cage and they just get prodded every once in a while. And maybe they go and like tear something apart and they get thrown like some raw meat and they're like, oh, this is good. You know, what do I get to kill to get another piece of this meat?
Yeah.
That's the Marines. US, UK, very different in not only training and stature, but we do have a Marine mentality that goes throughout the whole of the Marine community. Granted, we're very different beasts. I read a couple of comments on the channel the other day saying this dude doesn't know the difference between US Marines and Royal Marines. Trust me, I do. I've worked with the US Marines. I understand your basic standard of Marine. You're looking at like a 10, 12-week guy max. You know, your basic standard for a Royal Marine is 32, 36 weeks basic training. So there's going to be a difference there, okay? It's not until you start getting into the Raiders and the MARSOC guys and stuff that you can start comparing and saying that, you know, they're different. But the bog standard US Marine is, you know, there's a lot of them, a lot of highly trained Marines, and they're going to get the job done. And like you just said there, the SF guys want to work with them, so that tells you a lot about the breed that the Marines create.
The Marine Corps really is an outstanding organization, and then there's units within the Army that are unbelievably just squared away professional, and they have a heritage behind them of glory, for lack of a better word. And so I'm a huge fan of the entire military, of the entire U.S. military.
You know, but like you, are you proud to be a SEAL?
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
you know,
yeah. I'm proud
to be a Green Beret. You know, and I'm like, when Army plays Navy, like I don't know crap about football, you know, but I'm like, go just for crying out loud, beat Navy, you know, for once in this decade.
Yeah,
yeah. Royal Marines Commandos. Although we don't like to admit it a lot of the time, but we're Navy, all right? We are Royal Navy. We're not Royal Navy in the term of that's the title that we would give ourselves, but we are part of the Royal Navy. We are amphibious spearhead for them, basically, okay? You've got SBS who come under Special Forces Group, you know, who are at the tip of the spear, but Royal Marines are the Royal Navy's baby, basically, and the same goes there. And yeah, I learned to hate the Army just because it was that camaraderie type thing, but then I did a bit of reserve service in the Army and I changed my opinion on it. I was like, I've seen through it, but the United States is going to be no different in that regard.
Or damn near century.
To be honest with you, I literally don't care. And the biggest, when we were in Ramadi working with the Army and with the Marine Corps, those guys, the sacrifices that they made were so... They were so just impressive day to day what these guys did. And, you know, we had, of course, we do have better training. We do have better gear. And yet those Marine Corps platoons and companies would be out there doing, I mean, they're, first of all, they're living in the city. You know, we're going back to a little fob. We got a little bit of video games and internet. Huge walls.
Great gym.
Yeah.
Protein powder.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Those guys don't have
got any of that.
They don't have any of that.
We airdropped a pallet of porn and protein to a fire base that a bunch of Marines that like saved our lives when we were like knocking on their gate at 2:00 in the morning. We weren't. We were like 200 meters away and we didn't want them all to murder us and they were going to. Yeah. We're like, please let us in. Our air won't come pick us up. And we got in there like, you guys been eating T-rats? And they're like, yeah. We've been in pretty much a gunfight every single night. You know, like, yeah, dude, we're taking you guys, care of you guys.
So God bless all of them. No doubt about that.
Awesome, man. Troops, what do you think about that? Navy SEALs, Green Berets. The question was asked, who's better? They answered indirectly, no one's better. They all... The reason you've got Navy SEALs and Green Berets is because you need Navy SEALs and you need Green Berets. If you didn't need either and there was one going to be better, they would just make that outfit better and bigger. So they're both great at what they do. That's what I would say. That's the best way to put it. We need them both? Yeah, okay, right. So they're both great. They're both excellent. There is no better in this situation. But it's an interesting one. Navy SEAL, Green Beret. What would I have liked to have done if I had the opportunity to have served in the United States military? Honestly, if I had the ability to, and just because I'm a Royal Marines Commando doesn't mean to say that I could do any other course thereafter, all right? I passed and attained the level to meet the standard of the Royal Marines to get this bad boy. By default, I would love to go the Green Beret route in America and try the Green Berets, but obviously that's the cream of the crop. If I had the opportunity, honestly, I would have loved to have went Navy SEAL, do that, and then try and test myself for Green Beret. That's what I would like to have done, you know. But I'm in my 30s now. That shit ain't happening, right? But that would have been what I would have liked to have tried out. I would like to have done them both personally. Would I have been able to do them both? I don't know. I would like to think I would have. If I had the opportunity to have tackled that in my 20s, I would have took the same mentality and attitude that I did in the Royal Marines. If you asked me then, I'd be saying, hell yeah, I'm doing it, because that's what type of attitude you need to be able to get through those hard courses, okay, at the time. And if you ask me, am I going to be a Royal Marine at the beginning of training when I conducted training? Yeah, I would have said, yeah, 100%. I'm getting out here in 9.5 months' time with a Green Beret on my head. And guess what? That's what happened. So I'm a believer in that. But a little bit of a different video today, guys. Hopefully appreciate it and enjoy it. Smash that subscribe button. And I'll see you in the next video or in the comments. Peace.